The black SUV stopped so suddenly that tires screeched against wet asphalt. Bella's heart hammered as she froze mid-spin, the dollar bills she'd earned scattered at her feet. Through the tinted window, she couldn't see who watched her, but every instinct screamed danger. The back door opened and a man stepped out, tall, devastating in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her entire year's rent. His grey eyes locked onto hers with an intensity that made her knees weak. "Bella Martinez," his voice was velvet wrapped around steel. "We need to talk." She hadn't told anyone her full name in 3 years, not since she'd run. How did he know? And why did his presence make her feel terrified and safe at the same time? If you want to discover how their story began and what happened in this moment that changed everything, subscribe to the channel and leave a comment telling us where you're watching from. Every view helps bring more stories like this one. 3 weeks earlier, Bella's alarm hadn't gone off. Again, she bolted upright in the cramped studio apartment, her heart racing as she checked her phone. 5:47 a.m. She had 13 minutes to catch the bus to her morning shift at the diner, and if she missed it, there wouldn't be another for 45 minutes. She couldn't afford to be late. Not again. Her fingers flew as she twisted her dark hair into a messy bun, splashed water on her face, and grabbed the wrinkled uniform from the back of the door. The fabric smelled like grease and coffee, but there was no time to care. She shoved her feet into worn sneakers and ran. The November air bit at her cheeks as she sprinted down the cracked sidewalk. Her breath came in white puffs and her legs burned, but she pushed harder. 2 blocks. 1 block. She could see the bus stop ahead and the bus was pulling up. "Wait!" she screamed, waving her arms. "Please wait!" The bus driver saw her and, miracle of miracles, waited. Bella collapsed into a seat, gasping, her chest heaving. Small victories. That's what her abuela used to say. Celebrate the small victories, mija, because sometimes they're all you get. The diner was already buzzing when she burst through the door at 6:02 a.m. "Hi, you're late, Martinez," her manager Carl barked, not looking up from the register. "Again. I'm sorry, 2 minutes late is still late. That's coming out of your pay." Bella bit her tongue so hard she tasted copper. She needed this job. She needed all 3 of her jobs. The diner in the morning, the cleaning company in the afternoon, and on weekends she danced. Street performing wasn't glamorous, but tourists in the entertainment district were generous, and every dollar counted. The morning shift dragged like always. Her feet ached in the cheap shoes, and the smell of bacon grease made her stomach turn. She hadn't eaten since yesterday afternoon, saving her meager grocery budget, but she couldn't think about that now. Smile. Take orders. Don't mess up. Don't get fired. At 2 p.m. she clocked out and took 2 buses across town to the Riverside Tower, one of the most expensive residential buildings in the city. She cleaned penthouses for people who would never look her in the eye, who left hundreds of dollars in loose change on their counters while she scrubbed their toilets for minimum wage. Today's assignment was the top floor, the penthouse. Bella had never been up there before, and when the elevator doors opened, her breath caught. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the entire city. White marble floors gleamed. The furniture looked like it belonged in a museum. This wasn't just wealth. This was power. "The owner is out of the country," her supervisor had told her. "Deep clean everything, and don't touch anything you don't have to." Bella worked methodically, room by room. The master bedroom made her pause. A king-size bed with black silk sheets. A closet bigger than her entire apartment, filled with tailored suits and Italian leather shoes. On the nightstand, a framed photograph caught her eye. A man, probably in his early 30s, devastatingly handsome with sharp features and intense grey eyes, standing with an older man who looked like him, father and son maybe. Both wore expensive suits and had the same dangerous edge to their smiles. She shouldn't have looked. She turned away and kept cleaning. Hours later, exhausted and aching, Bella finally made it home. Saturday. Tomorrow was her day to dance, and she needed every dollar she could make. She pulled out the small box from under her bed, her secret stash. $347. She'd been saving for 8 months, just 200 more, and she could finally afford the deposit on a better apartment in a safer neighborhood. Maybe even one with heat that actually worked. Saturday morning arrived with weak sunshine and bitter cold. Bella dressed in layers, leggings under jeans, 3 shirts, and her warmest jacket that was still too thin. She grabbed her portable speaker and headed to her spot in the entertainment district, a corner near the Italian restaurant where tourists gathered. She pressed play on her phone, and the music filled the air. Her body moved instinctively, muscle memory taking over. She'd been dancing since she could walk, trained in ballet and contemporary before her family fell apart, before everything went wrong. Now she danced on street corners for singles and change, but when the music played, she forgot about everything else. For those few minutes, she was free. The crowd grew. People stopped, watched, tossed bills into her open guitar case that she'd found at a thrift store. She spun, leaped, let the music carry her. She didn't notice the black SUV that pulled up across the street, didn't see the man in the back seat lean forward, his grey eyes widening. Didn't realize that Dante Moretti, the most powerful and dangerous man in the city, was watching her every move with an expression no one had ever seen on his face before. Wonder. When the song ended, Bella bowed, breathless and glowing despite the cold. The crowd applauded, and she counted at least $30 in the case, enough for groceries this week. She was bending down to collect the money when a shadow fell over her. "You're wasting your talent here." Bella looked up and her heart stopped. The man from the photograph, the penthouse. But he was supposed to be out of the country. His presence was overwhelming, 6 feet of controlled power in a charcoal coat that probably cost more than her car. His grey eyes pinned her in place and she couldn't breathe. I'm sorry, I have a permit," she stammered, fumbling for the paper in her pocket. "I'm not a cop." His voice was smooth, cultured, with the faintest trace of an Italian accent. "I'm Dante Moretti." He said it like she should know the name. "And I have a proposition for you." Bella's hands trembled as she stood, clutching her case. She knew that name. Everyone knew that name, even if they didn't say it out loud. Dante Moretti owned half the city's real estate, restaurants, and God knew what else. Whispers said he was connected to things that happened in shadows, things people didn't talk about if they wanted to stay safe. I'm not interested in any. I need a dancer for an event. One night. $5,000. The number hit her like a physical blow. $5,000. That was more than she made in 3 months of killing herself at 3 jobs. That was the security deposit, first month's rent, and enough left over to breathe for a while. What kind of event? Her voice barely worked. A legitimate one. You'll dance at a charity gala. 3 hours. That's all. It sounded too good to be true. It probably was. But God, $5,000. She thought of the broken heater, the mold growing in the corner of her bathroom, the fear that lived in her chest every time she checked her bank account. Why me? Something flickered in his eyes. Because when you dance, Bella, the whole world stops to watch, even me. The way he said Bella made heat rush through her despite the cold. She knew it meant beautiful in Italian. She knew she should run. Every instinct told her this man was dangerous, but when he looked at her like that, like she was something precious instead of invisible, she couldn't remember why danger mattered. "When?" she whispered. "Next Saturday, 7 p.m. I'll send a car." He pulled out a business card, black embossed with silver lettering, and placed it in her shaking hand. His fingers brushed hers, and electricity shot up her arm. "Don't be late, Isabella." He turned and walked back to his SUV, leaving her standing there with her heart hammering and her mind spinning. How did he know her full name? What had she just agreed to? And why did part of her desperately want to see him again? Bella spent the entire week in a state of panic and excitement that made her feel insane. $5,000. The number haunted her dreams. It could change everything. But every time her phone buzzed, her heart leaped, wondering if Dante Moretti had changed his mind, if the whole thing had been some kind of cruel joke. On Tuesday, a box arrived at her apartment. Inside, wrapped in tissue paper that probably cost more than her weekly grocery budget, was a dress. Not just any dress, a floor-length gown in deep emerald green silk that felt like water against her skin. With it, a note in sharp masculine handwriting. "Wear this. The car will arrive at 6 p.m. DM. The dress fit perfectly. How did he know her size? The thought should have terrified her, but instead it sent a strange thrill down her spine. Someone had paid attention to her, seen her, not just looked past her like she was furniture, but actually seen her. Saturday arrived with agonizing slowness. Bella took extra shifts at the diner to keep her mind busy, but it didn't work. At 4 p.m. she finally went home and started getting ready. She showered with the cheap shampoo that smelled like artificial flowers, shaved her legs with a razor that desperately needed replacing, and carefully applied the drugstore makeup she saved for special occasions. The dress transformed her. In the cracked mirror on her bathroom door, she barely recognized herself. The green made her olive skin glow, and the silk-hugged curves she usually hid under oversized hoodies. Her dark hair, freed from its usual bun, fell in waves past her shoulders. For one night, she looked like she belonged in Dante Moretti's world. The black car arrived at exactly 6 p.m. The driver was older, professional, and called her Miss Martinez, with more respect than anyone had shown her in years. The drive took 40 minutes, heading to the north side of the city where Bella had never been. The houses grew larger, the streets cleaner, until finally they pulled through iron gates into a property that looked like something from a movie. The mansion was all white stone and glittering windows. Luxury cars lined the circular driveway. Men in tuxedos and women dripping in jewels climbed the marble steps. Bella's stomach twisted into knots. She didn't belong here. This was a mistake, a terrible, stupid mistake. "Miss Martinez," the driver opened her door. "Mr. Moretti is waiting inside." Her legs shook in the heels she'd borrowed from a co-worker. She climbed the steps, very aware that her coat was threadbare and her clutch was a cheap knockoff. A woman in a black suit met her at the door, spoke briefly into an earpiece, and led her through a ballroom that took Bella's breath away. Crystal chandeliers, champagne towers, an orchestra playing something classical and beautiful. And then she saw him. Dante Moretti stood near the bar, surrounded by men in expensive suits who were clearly hanging on his every word. But the moment Bella entered, his head turned. His grey eyes found hers across the room, and the entire world narrowed to just that look. He said something to the men, who immediately dispersed, and then he was walking toward her with the grace of a predator. Isabella. Her name on his lips was a caress. He took her hand and brought it to his mouth, pressing a kiss to her knuckles that made her breath catch. "You look breathtaking." Thank you. The dress is beautiful." "It's just a dress." "You make it extraordinary." He hadn't released her hand, and his thumb traced small circles on her wrist that sent heat spiraling through her. "Come, let me show you where you'll perform." He led her through the crowd, and she noticed how people parted for him, how they looked at him with a mixture of respect and fear, how no one dared approach unless he acknowledged them first. This was more than wealth. This was power, the kind that came with danger. The performance space was a raised platform near the orchestra, surrounded by marble pillars wrapped in fairy lights. It was perfect, beautiful, terrifying. "You'll dance here," Dante said, still holding her hand like it was the most natural thing in the world. 3 songs. I've told the orchestra your preferences." "How did you—" "I pay attention, Bella." His eyes held secrets. "Now, are you ready?" No, she wasn't ready. She wasn't qualified to be here in this world, performing for people who could buy and sell her entire life 1,000 times over. But she thought of the $5,000, the new apartment, the chance to stop drowning for just a little while. "Yes," she lied. The music started. Bella closed her eyes, took a breath, and let her body take over. She danced in subway stations, on street corners, in the rain and snow. She could do this. The movement came naturally, muscle memory and training flowing together. She spun, leaped, let the music carry her to somewhere beyond fear. She didn't see Dante watching from the shadows, his jaw tight and his hands clenched. Didn't see the way his chest rose and fell faster as she moved. Didn't notice how every man in the room turned to watch her, and how Dante's eyes turned cold and dangerous at their stares. When the last song ended, the applause was thunderous. Bella bowed, her heart racing, and when she looked up, Dante was there. He took her hand again, pulling her down from the platform and away from the crowd, into a quiet hallway where the noise faded. That was— He stopped, and she realized his carefully controlled mask had cracked. "Do you have any idea what you just did to me?" "I don't understand." "No, you don't." He stepped closer, and she could smell his cologne. Expensive, spicy, intoxicating. "Everyone here saw you. Every man in that room wanted you, and I wanted to burn this place down for it." Bella's breath caught. "Mr. Moretti." "Dante. Say my name, Isabella." "Dante." It felt dangerous, intimate. "Why did you really bring me here?" His hand came up, cupping her cheek with a gentleness that contradicted everything she'd heard about him. "Because, from the moment I saw you dancing in the cold, something in me recognized something in you, and I couldn't let you go. You don't know me. Then let me." His thumb brushed her lower lip, and her entire body ignited. "Have dinner with me. Tomorrow." "I can't. I have work." "Name your price." The words were wrong, insulting even, but his tone wasn't. He wasn't trying to buy her. He was desperate. She could see it in his eyes. This powerful man who had everything actually asking her for something he couldn't take. "I don't want your money," she whispered, and it was true, terrifying and true. Something fierce and possessive flashed across his face. "Then what do you want, Bella?" "You." The answer came unbidden, unwanted, undeniable, but she couldn't say it. Couldn't admit that this dangerous man made her feel more alive in 5 minutes than she'd felt in 3 years. "I want," her voice broke. "I want to understand why you're looking at me like that." "Like what?" "Like I matter." The vulnerability in her words cracked something in him. Dante stepped even closer, backing her against the wall until she could feel the heat radiating from him. "You do matter," he said fiercely. "You matter more than anything in that room, more than all of this, and I need you to have dinner with me so I can prove it." Before she could answer, voices echoed down the hallway. Dante immediately stepped back, his mask sliding into place, but his eyes stayed locked on hers. "Tomorrow," he said. 7 p.m. I'll send the car." It wasn't a question this time. It was a promise, a command, a plea, and God help her, Bella nodded. Sunday arrived wrapped in anxiety and anticipation that made Bella's hands shake as she tried to do normal things like eat breakfast and pretend her entire world wasn't tilting on its axis. She'd spent the night lying awake, replaying every moment with Dante, trying to convince herself to cancel, trying to remember all the reasons this was dangerous and stupid and reckless. But when 7 p.m. arrived and the black car pulled up, she was ready, wearing the only other decent dress she owned, a simple black one from a thrift store, with her hair down and her heart hammering against her ribs. The restaurant was small, intimate, tucked away on a quiet street with no sign on the door, the kind of place you only found if you knew it existed. The driver opened her door, and Dante was there, waiting. He wore dark jeans and a black button-down with the sleeves rolled to his elbows, revealing forearms roped with muscle and the edge of a tattoo, less formal than last night, but somehow even more devastating. Isabella. The way he said her name was already becoming addictive. "Thank you for coming." "I almost didn't." "I know." A slight smile tugged at his mouth. "That's one of the things I like about you. You're honest." He led her inside to a private room with a single table set for two. Candles flickered. Wine breathed. It was romantic and terrifying and perfect. "This restaurant belongs to my family," Dante said as he pulled out her chair. "My nonna's recipes. The chef is my cousin Paolo. You're safe here." The word safe sounded strange coming from him, but she believed it. In this room, with this man, she felt safer than she had in years. That should have been a warning sign. They talked through appetizers and the main course. Real talk. He asked about her dancing, her training, her dreams. She found herself telling him things she hadn't told anyone, how she'd been accepted to Juilliard with a full scholarship, how her parents died in a car accident 6 months before she was supposed to start, how she'd dropped everything to take care of her younger sister, until her aunt finally agreed to take custody. "And your sister now?" Dante asked, his eyes intent. "Living in Oregon with our aunt. Happy. Safe. That's all that matters." "But you gave up your dream." "She's my family." Bella's throat tightened. "I'd do it again." Something in Dante's expression shifted. Respect, admiration, something deeper. "Family is everything," he said quietly. "I understand that more than you know. Tell me about yours." He hesitated and she saw the wall slam down, but then he took a sip of wine and surprised her. "My father built an empire from nothing. He taught me that loyalty is everything, that power protects the people you love, and that weakness gets you killed. He died 2 years ago. Heart attack. Left me in charge of everything he'd built. I'm sorry." "Don't be." He would have hated sympathy. Dante's jaw tightened. "He was a hard man, ruthless, but he loved my mother more than life itself. I want that, what they had." The vulnerability in his admission made Bella's chest ache. This wasn't the dangerous mob boss everyone feared. This was a man who'd lost his father and inherited a burden he couldn't set down. "What do you want, Dante?" she asked softly. "Really want?" He looked at her for a long moment, those grey eyes seeing straight through every defense she had. "Peace. A life that's more than just surviving. Someone who looks at me like you're looking at me right now, like I'm just a man, not a name or a reputation. You are just a man. No. His hand reached across the table, capturing hers. I'm not. And you need to understand that before this goes any further. Before what goes further? Dante stood, still holding her hand, and pulled her to her feet. They were inches apart, the air crackling between them. This, he said roughly, whatever this is between us, because I can't stop thinking about you, Isabella. I can't stop seeing you dance, hearing your voice, wanting to know every single thing about you, and that's dangerous, for both of us. Why? Because people I care about become targets, because my world isn't safe, because I have enemies who would hurt you just to hurt me, and I should walk away right now, send you home, never see you again. His other hand came up to cup her face. But I'm not that strong. Bella knew she should be afraid, should run. But looking up at Dante, seeing the war in his eyes between what he wanted and what he thought was right, all she felt was the overwhelming need to ease that pain. I'm not weak, she whispered. I've survived things too, and I'm not afraid of you. You should be. I'm not. The last thread of his control snapped. Dante's mouth crashed down on hers, and Bella's entire world ignited. His kiss was hungry, desperate, claiming. His arms wrapped around her, pulling her against the hard planes of his body, and she melted into him like she'd been made to fit there. She'd never been kissed like this, like she was air and water and everything necessary to survive. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Dante pressed his forehead to hers. Tell me to stop, he said roughly. Tell me this is insane, and you want to go home. Don't stop. Bella's hands fisted in his shirt. Don't you dare stop. A sound escaped him, half groan, half laugh, and then he was kissing her again, softer this time, but no less intense. He kissed her like she was precious, like she mattered, like she was his. Come home with me, he murmured against her lips. Not for just to talk, to be together. I'm not ready to let you go yet. Every rational thought screamed that this was moving too fast, that she barely knew him, that this man was dangerous. But her heart whispered something different, that she'd been cold and alone for so long, and here was warmth. Here was someone who saw her. Here was a chance at something more than just surviving. Okay, she breathed. The drive to his penthouse, the one she'd cleaned just weeks ago, felt surreal. Dante kept her hand in his the entire time, his thumb stroking her knuckles like he couldn't bear to not be touching her. When they arrived, he led her inside to the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city lights. It's beautiful, Bella whispered. It's empty. Dante stood behind her, his arms wrapping around her waist, his chin resting on her shoulder. Everything I have is empty, Bella. Until you. She turned in his arms, looking up at this man who was supposed to be dangerous but held her like she was made of glass. I'm nobody. I clean houses and dance on street corners. Why me? Because you're real. Because when you smile, it reaches your eyes. Because you gave up your dreams for your sister without hesitation, and that kind of love is rare. His hand cupped her cheek. Because when I saw you dancing in the cold, something in my chest cracked open and I haven't been able to close it since. Tears burned Bella's eyes. I don't know how to do this. I don't know your world. I don't want you to know my world. I want to build a new one. With you. It was too much. Too fast. Too intense. But it was also everything she'd been afraid to want. I'm scared, she admitted. So am I. Dante's thumb brushed away a tear that had escaped. But I'm more scared of letting you go. They spent hours talking, curled together on his couch like they'd done this 1,000 times before. He told her about growing up in the shadow of his father's reputation, about the responsibilities he carried, about the loneliness of never being able to trust anyone completely. She told him about her parents, her sister, her dreams that felt impossibly far away now. At midnight, Dante called his driver to take her home, even though everything in him clearly wanted her to stay. I'm not rushing this, he said, kissing her softly at the door. I'm not that kind of man. Not with you. When will I see you again? Tomorrow, and the day after, and the day after that. His smile was devastating. I told you, Bella, I'm not strong enough to let you go. As the car pulled away, Bella pressed her fingers to her lips, still feeling his kiss, and wondered if she'd just made the best decision of her life or the most dangerous. Maybe both. The next 3 weeks were the best and most terrifying of Bella's life. Dante kept his promise. She saw him every day, sometimes just for coffee between her shifts, sometimes for dinner, once for a midnight walk through the city when neither of them could sleep. He never pushed for more than she was ready to give, but the tension between them built like a storm waiting to break. He learned her schedule and sent food to the diner on her breaks, paid off her electric bill when it was overdue, and when she tried to fight him about it, he simply said, "Let me take care of you, Bella, please." The word please from Dante Moretti's mouth was impossible to resist, but Bella noticed other things too. The men who always seemed to be nearby when they were together. The way Dante's phone constantly buzzed with calls he'd step away to take. The tension that would lock his jaw when certain names were mentioned. She'd asked about his business once, and his eyes had gone cold. "The less you know, the safer you are. I want to understand your life." "No, you don't. Trust me." It was the only topic that created distance between them, and it terrified her. 3 weeks after their first dinner, everything changed. Bella was walking home from her evening shift at the cleaning company when she noticed the car, a black sedan, following too slowly, too deliberately. Her heart kicked into overdrive. She walked faster. The car matched her pace. She turned down a side street and the car turned too. Panic clawed at her throat. She fumbled for her phone, pulling up Dante's contact, but before she could press call, 2 men stepped out of an alley ahead of her, blocking her path. They wore dark clothes and had cold eyes that made her blood freeze. "Isabella Martinez," one said. Not a question. "You're coming with us." "No, I—" She turned to run, but the sedan had pulled up behind her, cutting off escape. Hands grabbed her arms. She screamed, fought, kicked, but they were too strong. They dragged her toward the car, and terror consumed her. A gunshot split the air. Everyone froze. Bella looked up through her tears and saw Dante standing at the end of the street, a gun in his hand pointed at the sky. But it wasn't the gun that made the men release her immediately and step back. It was the look on his face. She'd never seen rage like that. Cold, controlled, absolutely lethal. "Touch her again," Dante said softly, "and I'll start with your hands, then your arms. Then I'll get creative." The men ran, sprinted like their lives depended on it, which they probably did. The sedan peeled away. And then Dante was there, holstering his gun and gathering Bella into his arms. She was shaking so hard she couldn't stand, and he simply lifted her, cradling her against his chest. "I've got you," he murmured into her hair. "You're safe. I've got you." He carried her to his car, held her as they drove, and didn't let go even when they arrived at his penthouse. He set her on the couch, knelt in front of her and carefully checked her over for injuries. His hands were gentle, but she could see them trembling with barely controlled fury. "Did they hurt you?" "No. You came in time." Her voice sounded far away. "How did you know?" "I always have someone watching when you're out at night. I thought—" His jaw clenched. "I thought I was being paranoid. Turns out I wasn't paranoid enough." "Who were they?" Dante stood, paced to the window, his shoulders rigid. "Rivals, trying to send me a message by going after you. Because of me. Because of me." He turned, and the pain in his eyes gutted her. "Because I let you into my life, and now you're a target. This is exactly what I was afraid of." Bella stood on shaking legs. "So what? You're going to push me away? Decide what's best for me without asking?" "Bella, no. Don't you dare do this." Anger cut through her fear, hot and clarifying. "I'm not some damsel who needs you to make decisions for me. I'm a grown woman who survived losing her parents, raising her sister, and 3 years of clawing my way through poverty. I can handle danger. Not this kind, you don't understand. Then explain it to me." She crossed the room until she was right in front of him. "Stop protecting me from the truth and tell me what's really going on." Dante looked at her for a long moment, something breaking in his expression. "My father's business wasn't just real estate and restaurants. He was the head of one of the most powerful crime families on the East Coast. And when he died, I inherited everything. The power, the respect, the enemies. I'm the boss now, Isabella, the Don. And people who want to hurt me will use you to do it." The confirmation of what she'd suspected still hit her like a punch, but she didn't step back. "And you think I'll run now?" "You should." "Well, I'm not." Her hands fisted in his shirt. "You said you wanted peace. Someone who saw you as just a man. That's what I'm offering. Don't push me away because you're scared." "I'm terrified." His hands came up to frame her face. "I'm terrified that caring about you will get you killed. That my world will destroy everything good and light about you. that I'm too selfish to let you go even though I should. Then be selfish. Bella pulled him down until their foreheads touched. Be selfish and keep me, because I don't want to go. Dante's control shattered. He kissed her with all the fear and desperation and need he'd been holding back, and she met him with equal intensity. They stumbled toward his bedroom, shedding the careful distance they'd maintained. This wasn't gentle. This was claiming, consuming, two people desperate to prove they were alive and together and not giving up. Afterward, wrapped in his arms with her head on his chest, Bella traced the tattoo on his ribs, a lion surrounded by Roman numerals. What does this mean? Family motto. Loyalty above all. My father had the same one. And you believe that? I have to. In my world, loyalty is the only thing that keeps you alive. He caught her hand, brought it to his lips. But you're teaching me there's something more important. What's that? Love. The word sounded foreign on his tongue, like he'd never said it before. Loving someone enough to want to be better than what you were made to be. Tears stung Bella's eyes. Dante. His phone buzzed on the nightstand. He ignored it. It buzzed again, and again. Finally, with a curse, he grabbed it, and his entire body went rigid. What is it? They took Marco, my cousin, the chef from the restaurant. Dante was already moving, pulling on clothes, all softness gone from his expression. They're going to kill him if I don't meet them alone. No, that's a trap. I know, but he's family. I don't have a choice. Bella grabbed his arm. Then I'm coming with you. Absolutely not. You don't get to decide that. Isabella. He cupped her face, kissed her hard and fast. If something happens to me, there's a safe in the closet. Code is your birthday. Everything you need is in there. Contacts, money, instructions. Promise me you'll run if this goes bad. Dante, please, promise me. I promise, she lied, because she could see he wouldn't leave until she said it. He kissed her one more time, deep and desperate like it might be the last time, and then he was gone. Bella sat frozen for exactly 30 seconds before she grabbed her phone and did the only thing she could think of. She called 911. Then she got dressed and followed him. Because if Dante Moretti thought she was going to sit safely in his penthouse while he walked into a trap, he clearly didn't know her at all. 2 years later, Bella stood in the wings of the Metropolitan Theatre, her heart racing with the familiar thrill of performance anxiety. Her name was on the program, Isabella Moretti, principal dancer. The scholarship Dante had arranged, the private training he'd insisted on, had brought her back to her dream, but on her terms this time. From her spot, she could see him in the front row, her husband of 6 months, looking devastating in a tuxedo and watching her with the same intensity as that first day. His hand rested protectively on her small baby bump, their first child, due in 4 months. Life wasn't perfect. His world still carried danger, and she'd learned to live with security and caution, but they'd found balance. He'd pulled back from the darkest parts of his business, and she'd learned which battles to fight and which to let go. As the music started and she stepped onto the stage, Bella thought about the girl who'd danced on street corners in the cold, desperate and alone. She'd been found by a man who'd taught her that love didn't make you weak. It made you brave enough to reach for impossible things, and she'd been right to reach. This story has come to an end. If it touched your heart in some way, leave your like and share it with someone who also enjoys emotional stories. New stories are coming soon. Until next time.